All right, well, evening, everyone. My name is Andy Spurka. I'm with the Ventura County Resource Conservation District. Thank you for joining the Wildfire Speaker Series tonight. This is our fourth one this year. We've been doing it now for about the better part of 3 years, actually. So we appreciate you taking the time. Of course, these meetings, as always, are recorded. Just want to note that right off the bat. So anything you say is going to be saved and posted on the internet. It's going to be posted on our webpage for access later. I did want to take a quick moment to go over our webpage with you guys while I'm here. I believe you can see the webpage right now. So this is our speaker series webpage. You can scroll down here. This is where recordings get posted from past speaker series this year, and then we have speaker series from last year in an archive. So it's a great resource. Of course, I just sent an announcement about signing up for our list server. I don't know why I didn't get that right. The newsletter that we have. This is for everything wildfire. We push out a lot of information in this stuff. We don't spam you. Sometimes it marks us as spam because we send a lot of good info, I like to think, but we send a lot of wildfire prevention, emergency updates, new regulations, stuff that the community should know about wildfire. So I just put that in the chat. I'd encourage you to sign up. And again, I'm going to put this webpage in the chat right here. And again, this is where you can access previous recordings and everything. This recording will be posted there tomorrow. So it is open for people to join. So with that, I just want to note a few things before I introduce the speakers tonight. So this is a webinar function. So and some of you are not used to that, you won't be able to unmute your microphone unless you're given permission. You will have to raise your hand and then I can do it, or you can type into the chat asking to unmute, or if you have a question, type it into the Q&A. That would be perfect, actually. So how the format of these usually go is there's presentations from each of the three presenters. After the presentations, we have a few minutes for Q&A, very brief few minutes. We then move on to the next presenter, and at the end of the presentations, if there's any time left before 7, we'll do a general Q&A. And we'll go from there. With that, hopefully the presenters, if you have the time, please enter your contact info into the chat at some point tonight so people have it. Tonight's presentations, we have 3 of them. First one's going to be the Humane Society of Ventura County. The second one's going to be the Independent Living Resource Center. And the third is going to be the Red Cross. All of this is focused around wildfire, how to prepare, and what to expect. With that, I will stop talking. We have our first set of presenters tonight. We have Eric Knight, who's the Executive Director of the Humane Society of Ventura County. And we also have Kendra King, who's a Senior Humane. I have hospital, but that's definitely
Officer,
not right.
Officer.
Officer. I don't know why I did that. I don't know where I got that. Senior Humane. I'm so sorry about that, Kendra. So thank you so much, and take it away, guys. Feel free to share the screen. I'll stop sharing it now.
Thanks so much for having us. Yeah, let me get my screen share up here.
Perfect.
And let's see if we can get that going. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Eric Knight. I am the Executive Director for the Humane Society of Ventura County. We're going to present here for maybe about 10 minutes. My co-presenter here, I'll allow her to introduce herself.
I'm Kendra King. I am the Senior Humane Officer.
So we'll get into what that means in just a second. We're going to talk mostly about, almost entirely actually, this evening for about 10 minutes on how to prepare your animals for times of wildfire, and then what should happen when one occurs, what it would look like if you were to evacuate to the Humane Society, and some other helpful information. So first of all, just a little background on the Humane Society of Ventura County. We are a 501c3 animal welfare organization. We do not receive any funding from the government or other national welfare organizations. We rely entirely on the generosity of the community to provide our vital services. In addition to what you might think of with the Humane Society, adoptions, of course, we are the place to go to adopt dogs and cats. We also do have horses. In addition to that, we have education programs. We do education outreach. We occasionally have field trips on site for school children. We have an on-site clinic with a very wonderful director of veterinary services. In that clinic, we take care of the animals that we have on site, but we also offer really valuable services to the public for low-cost spay and neuter and low-cost vaccinations. Additionally, we have community outreach programs for low-cost and free vaccinations where we go to neighborhoods that may not be adjacent to OHI or for other reasons be accessible to our on-site services. So about once a month, we go out into the community and we'll do free or low-cost vaccinations on site. We can also offer vouchers for support for other veterinary services. We are also going to be starting next year some public programming that's going to be very helpful. Things from Obedience 101 to rattlesnake aversion training, things like that. That's going to start next summer. We have a pet pantry program for food, to address food insecurity. Food insecurity happens for families with animals as well as families without. So we are happy to offer that valuable service to the community. And we have an investigations department, unlike any other animal welfare organization in the county. And to speak to what that looks like real quick before we get into the prepping for wildfire, Kendra, tell us a little bit about the investigations part of the Humane Society.
Absolutely. So we actually investigate reports of abuse and neglect within Ventura County. We do cover the whole county. There are 2 full-time officers at this time. We do have another officer that is in training with a possible 4th coming up. So we'll be able to expand even more in the future.
Thank you. And with that, Kendra was around for Thomas Fire, a number of wildfire scenarios and disasters. So Kendra, why don't you give everybody an overview of what the Humane Society offers in times of wildfires based on our previous successful experience in serving the region?
Absolutely. First off, I would say it's a safe place to land during any type of an emergency. So during the Thomas Fire, I think we had something around 360 animals that were brought to our facility that we cared for. We were there around the clock offering evacuation services for the public and intake services for the public to bring their animals to us. We were also did the same thing for the Hill and Woolsey fire and the Easy and Maria fire as well. So it's a lot of coming together with the community and providing these resources during these times to be able to serve our community.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of really what we're going to talk about, the 2 important components of this evening, which is how to prepare for a wildfire scenario, how to have everything ready, because these things happen. They're very fluid situations, and when they happen, they can happen very quickly, as we all remember from the Thomas Fire. And so there's the preparation part of it, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect on the day, what to expect when this occurs, and you bring an animal to the Humane Society of Ventura County. So when you're preparing your cat and your dog, I'm going to do cats and dogs and turn it over to Kendra to talk about horses and livestock. When you talk about preparation, there are a number of resources on the internet with lists, and I encourage you to look at those and generate those. We can probably also send out some resources as far as that. When it comes to creating a plan, more is better. So it's great for you to prepare a plan, and it's also great for you to share it, make sure the entire family knows it. And we also encourage you to make sure that someone outside of your household is aware of what your plan is. It could be a close friend, it can be a relative in the area. Anybody who's going to be sort of a redundancy when it comes to having information about your animal and where your animal is going to be is a very good practice. So plan it with neighbors, friends, relatives. Things that you're going to want to have ready. You're going to want to have copies of your pet's vaccination records, not the vaccination records. You're going to want to make copies of these things and have these in a kit. You're going to want to make sure that your pet is microchipped. If your pet is not microchipped, make sure you do that in advance and that you have all the information about that chip. And you're going to create a kit, much like you have a kit for yourself for, when you might need to evacuate in case of an earthquake or a wildfire. You need to have that kit for your animal as well. Some things you're going to want to look for. First thing to think of, particularly with cats, are the crates and the carriers. not only are you going to want to make sure you have that crate and carrier, you're going to want to make sure that it's accessible at all times, right? You don't want to have this thing buried in a crawl space or up in the rafters of your attic of your garage. That's going to take you a whole lot of time to get to. Anybody with cats will know that once you start doing all that kind of stuff, it immediately triggers anxiety in the animal anyway. So during these kind of fluid situations where you're rushing around, it's good to have that thing readily accessible. And really one of the first things you're going to want to do when you realize this is happening is work on getting that cat or dog or small dog into the crate, particularly with the cats, because as things are escalating, the cat's going to sense what's going on. And typically cats want to hide in the farthest, most inaccessible corner they can. So you have that crate accessible. And one of the first things you're going to do is put the cat in there. Once the cat's in there, you can pack your bag, you can do all this other stuff. But you don't want the cat to be in a situation where it's running and hiding from you. Food, obviously you're going to want to have drinking water. You're going to want to have drinking water for yourself in these scenarios, but also for your animals. So when you're doing this and you're preparing those disaster kits, make sure that you're accounting for water for your animals. Bowls. This is something that people can forget really easily. You're traveling with your bag and you've got your water and your food, and suddenly you've got no container for it. Litter pans and a manual can opener if your pet eats canned food. Now these are things you want to have in your kit. We'll talk about what it looks like on the day at the Humane Society. Now, you're not going to need to hand over your manual can opener to us at the Humane Society when you get there. But if you're evacuating your cat to a friend's house or a neighbor's house or a relative's house, you do want to make sure that you have a full kit. Medications and copies of medical records. You want these stored in a waterproof container. These are going to be handed over if you're evacuating your pet to the Humane Society. Current photos of you with your pets. This is important. This is something that's not as intuitive as, of course, I need food, but you want to have current photos of you with your pets that are labeled on the back with contact information in case they get lost. Many pets look alike, right? So it's going to be really helpful if there's that photograph involved. Information on feeding schedules, medication conditions, or rather medication schedules, medical conditions, any behavioral problems, the name and number of your vet, and you're going to want to have in your kit pet beds and toys if they're easily transportable. Now, again, when you get to the Humane Society, we're not going to take the bed, but if your cat is in a crate, it'll be helpful to have a piece of clothing or a towel that smells like you, something they're familiar with, and then also, maybe a toy mouse that they're gonna bat around in that case. There are pet first aid kits. Many pet supply stores have these pet first aid kits. Again, if you're bringing your animal to the Humane Society, we have all that stuff on hand, but you're going to want to have that in your kit. So that's some preparation for cats and dogs. Kendra, what can you speak to as far as horses and livestock?
So for horses and livestock, that's really all about preparation. This is where it's most important, where you have a plan in place, especially with horses and livestock, for loading them into a trailer, that they know how to do that safely and they know how to do it calmly. Being able to have a mode of transportation for these animals, because they're very large animals. And if you don't have transportation yourself, make sure you have at least one other person that has a trailer. You can work out, depending on the location of the fire, who's going to go first as far as moving the horses. It's especially important, and I always tell people this: if you have a horse and there's a evacuation warning going into place, get ready then, leave then. You don't want to get it to an order, because getting horses in a trailer in a very chaotic situation can be really hard. Making sure, again, same thing, any type of medications they have, if they have a certain feed that they have to have, or they're allergic to something, we would need to know that. And I'm sure any other barn that they would go to would need to know that as well. For livestock and horses, you can get things called it's like an oil chalk pen type thing. And it's a big stick, and you can actually write your phone number on like their flank, or I've seen people use a Sharpie and write their phone number on their hooves. any type of way that you can have identification for that animal. And you can actually microchip a horse too. You can ask your vet about that. That's a great way to have identification on your horse. That's the basics, I would say, for horses and livestock, is get them prepared, make sure they know how to load in a trailer. If you have your own trailer, do not use it as feed storage. Have it clear and ready to go in an easily accessible area.
Thank you for that. With our last minute or two, we want to give you a picture of what it's going to look like when you evacuate to the Humane Society. It's very simple, but things to keep in mind. The address is up here on the screen. Please write that down, have that handy. Also, I put the phone number and our email address in the chat in case there's anything you think of, tomorrow or something that you wanted to ask. But when you get to the Humane Society, it'll be pretty simple. Just make sure you follow the signage. There will be volunteers on site in vests. Make sure you follow the directions of them. There will be pop-up tents in the parking lot. People will be clearly directing people to where intake for dogs, cats, and others are. So make sure you do that. And then you'll fill out some intake paperwork and be on your way so that we can rotate through. With the last minute, Kendra, can you speak a little bit to what would happen if someone had an animal that they needed evacuated out, but they weren't able to bring it to the Humane Society? What would that look like, and how do we avoid getting there?
Preparation is going to be your best friend to avoid actually getting to this place, because the bottom line in this is you don't want to get to this point. But if it does become apparent, and we all know from the Thomas fire, that was such a fluid situation that it happened so quickly, a lot of people did not have time to get out. Make sure that you give us a call. Let us know what type of animal it is, the size of the animal, where the animal is located, if there's any gates that we need access through, if there's a gate code we need, as much detailed information as possible to make it easy for us to be able to locate the animal. And I want to stress it enough that we will absolutely try our best with the resources we have available to get someone out to get your animal. If we are not able to, we work really closely with Ventura County Animal Services and a couple other agencies that will try to get you help as well. Main line is, though, I would say, is preparation. Be prepared. Get evacuated before that order is in place if you have animals, and just be safe.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys both. I appreciate that. And I mean, preparation is key for everything. I mean, even if you don't have animals, right? Prepare and leave when they ask you to leave, or when there's that warning. You think about where you're going when you're going, because your evacuation routes might have to go to alternative routes or whatever. You don't want to get stuck in that position, especially if you're in landlocked areas where there's only a few ways out. And there's a handful of those in the county. Great presentation, though. Thank you. I'm happy you guys were able to speak tonight. And there was a lot of stuff that I didn't even think about. And I grew up in a rural area up in Northern California. And that's so good to hear that you guys do accept animals. I didn't even think about that. I guess so they can drop it off at the Humane Society as they're on their way to an evacuation center or something like that. Is that kind of the protocol?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, that's great. Because I've always actually wondered that. As much wildfire stuff, I never knew that. So that's great. We did have one question, which I think, and anyone has questions, type into the chat or raise your hand. But I think your photo answered it. They were asking if you allow for crated dogs and cats. It looks like that was encouraged, probably.
Yes. Yeah, that's encouraged, actually.
Okay, and they end up probably, I mean, what happens once they hand them off to you? Can you talk real briefly about what that looks like? Like, what's the next step in that? You guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'd love to elaborate on that. Kendra, having been a part of it, do you want to sort of take a minute to talk about what the care looks like after the animal's been dropped off?
Absolutely. So during an active fire, any active type of situation, when an animal comes into us, we'll get them set up after some of the intake paperwork is done. We'll get them set up in a kennel if it's a dog, and in our front lobby where all of our cats are, and they'll usually have either rollaways or a wire crate that's big enough to house them, a litter box, their food, and a nice bed with plenty of room. And then we'll have staff there. We'll have staff and volunteers there pretty much around the clock. I think we were almost 3 weeks straight during the Thomas fire that we had staff and volunteers there 24 hours a day. And at that point, you know, the owners are more than welcome to come and visit their animals during the time that we are open. If we're open all the time, at that point, all of our information will always be posted either on our website or on our social medias as far as what the visiting time is, if it's changed or if it's still a 24-hour type thing.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I also important to note, this is free. We don't charge for this. If you're displaced for a month, we will take care of your animal for a month. This is free. Of course, donations, gifts are encouraged, because but it's such an important service to our county and to our region that please know that there is no cost to you. We wouldn't want anybody to hesitate to bring their pet to us because they feel like they don't know how long they're going to be away from home and maybe they can't afford it. We will care for your animal.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys both for taking the time. We appreciate it. There's the information in there. Great information. I learned a lot tonight from that. So with that, everyone, we'll move on. You guys have a good night. And we have our next presenter for the evening, the Independent Living Resource Center, Brandon Smith, who's the Emergency Preparedness Service Manager. Brandon, feel free to share your screen.
All righty, 1 second.
All righty, perfect.
Perfect. So, good evening, everyone. As Andy said, my name is Brandon Smith, and I'm with the Independent Living Resource Center. I am the Emergency Preparedness Services Manager. We are a nonprofit that seeks to help people with disabilities and access and functional needs live more independently, as our name suggests. So who is the Independent Living Resource Center? We are consumer driven and led. Pretty much all of our staff have disabilities ourselves, and we use that knowledge to be able to support the disability community because we're all in some way part of it. There it goes. All right, so the main theme for my topic is prepare as if no one is coming for you, because, you know, disasters hit like wildfire. We know that every single resource is stretched to the limit when it comes to personnel and supplies. You know, fire, police, even the National Guard are all going to be stretched as far as they can. And so my goal personally as the Emergency Preparedness Services Manager is to make sure that everyone that I come into contact with is as prepared as possible to be on their own, either by themselves or with their family, and so they can get out of that situation as best they can on their own before help can come. Just a quick list of the services that we provide, or I should say I provide. Applying for Power Utilities Medical Baseline Program, I work with both SoCal Edison, which I know applies to pretty much everybody attending, but I also work for Pacific Gas and Electric up in San Luis Obispo County and Northern Santa Barbara County. I help with creating disaster and emergency plans. That could be either for sheltering in place, and it could be also for evacuation. And the way that it's structured is that it can be as broad or as specific as you want it to be. A big factor of my program is the distribution of Goal Zero backup batteries for medical devices. To qualify, you have to be someone with a disability and to have a medical device that requires power, you know, CPAP, APAP, oxygen concentrator. I've even given it out for like dialysis machines, nebulizers. Yeah. And that is all, it ultimately stems from the Disability Access or Disability Disaster Access and Resources Program. And that is a huge component of my program. Creating emergency kits and go bags is another function that I do, and it goes along with creating a disaster plan, because creating go bags and, you know, prep kits, stuff like that can be very daunting, especially if you've never done before or you don't really have a good frame of reference. So my goal with that is to, one, give you a frame of reference of how you want to build a kit, but then also get you started, because again, it could seem like it's this impossible task, but it's really not. And like I said, I work with the power utility companies, especially during public safety power shutoff events, which is when they cut the power to mitigate wildfires. All right, wildfire safety tips for AFN or access and functional needs. And I'll you know, I wasn't gonna say, you know, beat this dead horse, but I know we just talked to the Humane Society, so that's probably not the best analogy to come up with. But I'm gonna keep reiterating this: is to make a plan, make an evacuation plan, because that is probably the best and most and foremost tool that you could have when it comes to wildfire safety. A plan to evacuate, a plan to secure your home, and then practice that plan. Because, you know, having things on paper is great, but when things finally happen, it's gonna be real hard to execute it if you don't know what you're doing and you've only ever written it down. I would also, and this is part of our planning process, if you work with me to create a plan, is that we include 5 trusted allies in your plan. These are, you know, it doesn't have to be exactly 5 people, but 5 is a recommended number of contacts either close by or within reasonable distance who can come and assist you with evacuation or sheltering in place, or whom you could reach out to in order to evacuate or provide assistance in any other way. The thing is that you don't want to do this completely on your own. Have needed medications on the go, or ready to go, I should say, because when it comes to evacuation, you're not going to want to be scouring your medicine cabinets and, you know, your pantries to get all your medications out from various parts of the house. You're going to want them in one consolidated area. Like, I didn't bring it with me, but like at our house, we have medication and first aid kit basically in like a Tupperware box, and my wife bought at Target, and that sits in our bathroom linen closet. And so if we ever need to evacuate, we could just grab that and it goes with us. And I already went over securing the 5 trusted contacts or allies. All right. More tips. This actually kind of goes along with what the Humane Society was saying. Just like with your animals documentation, you're also going to want to make sure that your documentation is up to date as well. Make sure that information on driver's licenses are correct, passport, birth certificate, whatever you have as form of ID, because it could be, you know, bringing together loved ones, trying to identify property damage, all something like that. It's going to be a real hassle if, you know, the powers that be don't have your correct information. You know, it could be going to a sorry, I'm blanking on an evacuation center, like where you can go and meet up. You're going to want correct information there as well. When it comes to household security for wildfire preparedness, you're going to want to make sure that you have an outside source of water. You know, most of us have hoses outside, you know, water taps where water lawns and whatnot. Best recommendation is to have a hose long enough that it can reach like the perimeter of your house, because as soon as a wildfire hits, you're going to want to start spraying basically everything down, you know, from roof to crawl space. You want to spray down the entire outside of your house. And then with that, you're also going to want to ensure that you have about a 30-foot perimeter around your property that is free of debris, free of dead plants, because that's going to be your fire buffer zone. You keep that area, that 30-foot area around your property well maintained, well watered, less of a chance a fire is going to hop over it and directly affect your house. And for those who live in like apartment buildings, condos, townhomes, usually those establishments, like the landlords and the people who own it, should already have some sort of fire mitigation plan in place where a similar aspect is already going to happen. Again, I also can't reiterate enough: practice your plan, make a plan, and practice it. get as many people as, you have multiple people in your household, more than just, spouse and kids, or multiple family, multi-generational. Get everyone to practice in on this plan. Make sure everyone knows where to go, how to get out, and alternate routes to get out to wherever a meeting place is going to be. And then make sure that each person is also assigned roles. Make sure that every person in the household knows what they're supposed to do specifically to them. Because if you just tell everybody to grab X amount of things, go to this place, a lot of things are going to be missed. There's going to be a lot of tripping over. There's going to be delays because someone's going to be looking for something that somebody else already grabbed. You don't need that. Designate specific roles so that people know what they are getting and where they are meeting, either together, or if like let's say I have to leave the office but meet my wife and kids somewhere else, I already know what I have. They would know what they need to get, and then we can meet together. And that's very important too, because duplicating efforts in the heat of the moment is never good. All right. Like I said, a big part of my program is dealing with medical equipment, DME, which is durable medical equipment, and medical equipment that requires power. You're going to want to make sure that stuff is in good working order, not just, in the case of a wildfire and evacuation, but all the time, because, you don't want to be using a device improperly because it could damage you as well as the machine. So things like, this is something that I came across when I was doing a little bit of research, things like power scooters, wheelchairs, power chairs, even walkers, you're going to want to make sure that there are as smooth and as frictionless of services as possible in those devices, because those things can easily spark and inadvertently be the cause of a wildfire, but also damage the device, and then it'd be unsafe for you to use. You're also going to want to keep medical devices that require power to be plugged in a properly grounded outlet, especially because most devices that require power are required to be plugged in continuously. Things like oxygen concentrators, you don't just unplug it, it's usually just left plugged in. So you want to make sure that those are safely plugged in somewhere that is grounded, so that it prevents any sort of house fire as well. Staying informed and signing up for alerts is another big component of preparing for wildfires. Ones I've found for the area is to sign up for the readyventura.org. Ventura County has their own emergency alert system. Downloading the FEMA app on a mobile device is also a great resource. I have it on my phone, and you can get as many alerts as you want for different areas. So like I have alerts for San Luis, Santa Barbara, and Ventura County on my phone, because I work in all three of those areas. And it can also help you create plans and kits. I haven't gone as far as creating a full-on kit with it, so I don't know if you just make it and then that you can buy it from them, or you basically just make like a wish list. I'm not sure, but I have done the steps of creating a plan with it, and it's very intuitive and very fun to use. Registering for outage alerts with SoCal Edison is also a good resource, because they're the ones who know fastest when the power goes out, and when something that could spark a wildfire or wildfire prevention, they're usually the first one to know. I know that if you are on their medical baseline program or their critical care program, you automatically get alerts. But I know that you can also sign up for emergency alerts if you're not on either of those programs. The links are right there. Last ones I have is solutions and resources, solutions and resources. Great resource obviously is me, selfless plug here. I do offer a short-term battery loan for PSPS events when it comes to medical devices in the Ventura County and Santa Barbara County area. Basically, if you have a medical device and there is a planned outage if you want to become a consumer of mine, you could potentially get a backup battery for that planned outage. If that were to happen, I am, like I've said before, 1,000 times, I help create emergency plans. I also provide emergency kits. It's a great resource, super easy. Everything that I provide is free of charge. We're a nonprofit. We get funding through generous donors and the state and other agencies to be able to provide these resources that we have. So getting a backup battery, making a plan, getting a kit, or anything else is completely free of charge. I know that SoCal Edison also has a critical care backup battery program, and that is for specific qualifications that are a bit different than ours. I know that I'm pretty sure for them that you have to be in a CPUC designated tier 3 high fire zone. Don't quote me on that, but I'm like 90% sure that that's what it is. And then SoCal Edison also has hotel discounts, and I believe this is available to anybody, and it has to do with extended power outages. And I believe that includes maintenance and PSPS. So if there's going to be power out for more than, I want to say 24 hours, then you could qualify to get a discounted hotel in the area. And it's pretty good discounts, like low ends like 10%, high ends like 20%. So it's pretty good.
Wow.
It's a good resource. Good resources to have on hand for wildfire safety is ray.gov, a site that I use frequently. The Ventura County Alerts, just wanted to put the link back up there again. Our website, the ILRC Emergency Prep website, and there's also my information, and I'll put it in the chat as well for anybody who wants to reach out to me. And that's the
Perfect.
end of my presentation.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. Those battery packs are extremely important, especially for public safety power shutoffs, right? Stuff
Yes.
there may not even be a fire, and that's a great resource that you have to have them just available for a ready to go loan program. One question I had, and I've had for a while, is do you know of any, and I think I know the answer, but do you know of any program that provides emergency evacuation assistance during the need? So if there's an elderly and we know, so for example, say I have a neighbor down the block or that I know of, and they don't have family members, there's a fire coming, I can only do so much. Is there a service that I can call to help them evacuate that's outside just the sheriff, or is that the solution?
You know, that's actually a really good question, and I wish I had a better answer. I have not found a specific one for Ventura County.
Okay.
I know that, again, this is irrelevant to pretty much probably everybody on this call, but I know that San Luis County does have a evacuation assistance program from the county, which is cool. I believe that Santa Barbara County has something similar, but don't quote me on that. I need it, but I'd be more than happy to do some research on evacuation assistance in that area and get back to you, because then I also want to know too.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. And from me and my colleagues, I work a lot with the county fire safety councils and others, and we haven't seen it. It's an idea we've been talking around as of recent too, since we have bears and stuff, and we get that question, do we have an evacuation during it? Can someone come and get me if, my kids, I don't have family around. So maybe it's a grant or project or opportunity, but it sounds like we definitely need it in this county. But with that, well, thank you. Appreciate it, Brandon. Thanks for the time. We're going to shift over to our last presenter of the evening, which is going to be with the Red Cross. This is Doug Graham, who is from what I hear, a dedicated volunteer with the Red Cross. Doug, feel free to take it away here. Your screen is coming in.
All right, so we're okay on the screen there then?
Yep. Oh, we just zoomed in quite a bit there. Right there will work. That will be okay.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So a lot of what I'm going to say is going to repeat actually what Eric, Kenda, and Brandon told you, and that's to be prepared. So what I would like to talk about tonight is what to expect at evacuation centers and how to prepare for them. So the first thing, you can go on Red Cross website, which is redcross.org. Is our previous speakers spoke about, was getting a kit, learn the essential supplies to put in your family survival kit. And as both Brandon and Eric pointed out, there's a number of websites that can do that. The FEMA site, the county site has good plans as well. And then as Brandon pointed out as well, make a plan effectively for you and your family and what their specific needs are. So whether those are with access and functional needs or fully functional, you still need to make a plan and have those backup people to contact. And then the other thing is be informed. Understand which disasters are likely to occur in your area and what you must know to stay safe. There was some talk right now about the public safety power shutoffs from Southern California Edison, and I receive alerts from the County Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services, and Edison is currently monitoring 14 circuits for their PSPS, or public safety power shutoff. So again, the Edison website's a good resource for that. The county website, VCRCD.org, is also a great website to find that information out. And this is the just a screenshot for the VC Emergency website. So they have maps of the public safety power shutoffs. They have maps of fires or whatever else you need to do. And this truly is the best source of information during any type of emergency. I've been in the County Office of Emergency Services during events, and they are very diligent about keeping this up to date. So make sure you write this website down, vcemergency.org, because that is probably the best website for current information on any type of event. So how will you know when to leave your residence? So there are 3 ways to do it. And Brandon was great by putting up the VC Alert website. So they have an emergency, it's a reverse 911 type of system where you can register for that. You can register for other people. You can register to be alerted via email, via text alert, via phone, and for your specific areas. In a worst case scenario, there's door-to-door notifications where the sheriff's or other public safety personnel are going to come and alert you to leave. And then there's the wireless emergency alerts, and as well as the emergency alert broadcast system. But the important thing to know as well is that if you observe conditions near your residence that may jeopardize your safety, don't wait for official notification. And then when the sheriffs do notify you to leave, make sure you heed their advice. It's not worth staying and putting yourself or your family or others in danger if they have to come out. The other thing to think about is when a fire in this case gets close to residences, you have a lot of fire trucks, a lot of other emergency personnel going in there, and you don't want to impede them, and you don't want to be impeded on your way out. So where do you go? So a little bit about temporary evacuation points. They kind of came into being through the Red Cross during the early COVID pandemic. Typically, Red Cross has had congregate shelters where we would be in a gymnasium, for instance, and we would have a number of cots in there. During COVID, we got people to a central safe point where they could gather. We could determine what the best course of action for their safety and how long a particular emergency was going to last. And at that point, they were initially directed to non-congregate sheltering, which typically was a hotel type arrangement. Because of COVID's demise or lessening, we are back to congregate sheltering, but we're still using this model of temporary evacuation points. In Ventura County, they're set up by 3 different organizations. That's County Human Services Agency, which has responsible for care and shelter in the county. Also, the Red Cross will assist in those, and Salvation Army will come out and do canteen for them. So again, it's a great collaboration of our county government as well as nonprofits. And again, how will you know where these places are at? They're going to be posted on the Ventura County VCRCD.com website. So again, that's going to be your best source of information. So what happens when you get to a TEP, as we call them? So you're going to be met by a team from the county, from the Red Cross and Salvation Army, and we're going to try and determine what your needs are, assess what the situation is. And one of the other important things that's provided there, in addition to food, water, and whatever else depending upon the situation, is information. So you should be able to get information on the current status of whatever situation, whatever emergency has put you into that temporary evacuation point. The county goes into a great deal of discussion in determining where these are at. There are 7 of them throughout Ventura County. And if you look on the VC Emergency website, they're all listed on there. But one important thing to remember is they are not all open. So the evacuation points are set up through conversations with the county, with the Red Cross, in terms of determining what the best location is to best service the citizens of our county. Again, at the temporary evacuation points, there will be restrooms. It's a safe environment. The county's vetted those. There's water and restroom facilities and snacks. One other thing that the county also does is the county will register you and for future casework that they may have that will help in terms of recovery. So what if it's a big fire? What if we go into a shelter? So what can you expect in a shelter? Again, I think as Brandon aptly pointed out, you want to make sure you have all your medications and anything for your pet. There was a question earlier on the Q&A. Are pets in crates allowed into shelters? And the answer is yes. They're not allowed into the dormitory area of the shelter, but they are allowed into the shelter. We also work with Ventura County Animal Services, who will provide portable shelters for us at our shelters should the need arise. What to pack, that goes back to make a kit. And it's always good to have a go kit, and not only in your house, but also to have a go kit in your car. In the event that you're mobile, that you're at work and you can't get back to your house, you're still going to have those supplies available to help you out. And again, regardless of what current model and protocols are, the Red Cross always is going to provide shelter. We're going to provide 3 square meals a day. And again, a lot of those meals are provided by the generosity of restaurants and food service places with our county. And within our shelters, we also supply disaster health services, which is not full-on medical care, but certainly if there's issues, we provide disaster mental health issues and disaster spiritual care assistance as well. Our goal, if we get people into shelter, is to get them out as quickly as possible and back to their pre-disaster living situation. So that can involve any number of things. We can set up sites where we will have insurance companies, we'll have FEMA there. If it's a large disaster, where people can get the recovery information they need to make that successful transition back into, again, that pre-disaster living situation. There was some talk about Thomas Fire and the Hill Woolsey fires. These are the statistics that we assisted people. Over 2,000 people stayed in our shelters during these events. And I was personally at one of the shelters in Thousand Oaks during the Hill Woolsey fire at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was crazy, but again, there's always a safe place, a warm bed or cot in this case, a blanket, and somebody to give you a hug if you need it from the Red Cross. And like the other organizations, we are a complete nonprofit. We get $0 from the government, and we rely upon the generosity of the American public. If you're looking for a little more information on how to be Red Cross ready, again, that's making a plan and figuring out what type of situation is going to occur in your area. We're going to have a virtual chat on December 7th from 6 to 8, and you can register there. The website link is included on that. So I'll leave that up there for a second. And thank you. And if you have any questions, please let me know, please.
Well, thank you, Doug, for that presentation. I really do appreciate that. I had no idea about the temporary emergency shelter idea and how that kind of came up from COVID. That must have been crazy at first. That's a really good idea.
That's where it initially came up, but it works out that it works really well in any type of event.
Yeah, I'm sure it does, especially when with fire stuff that's evolving so fast, or any event that evolves
Exactly.
fast. Now you guys have a protocol in place to kind of erect structures when needed or whatnot. Thank you for those photos of the shelter and everything else. Really do appreciate it. Great talk. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type it in now. But for the most part, we are going to conclude. We're wrapping up 7, so I want to be aware of everyone's time and commitment tonight. So thank you all for joining. Thank you to the presenters for being here tonight. The overarching message, as it is for most of these speaker series for the last 2 or 3 years, is to be prepared. Be prepared, and if you're not prepared, you should probably get prepared. You're going to hear it from all wildfire emergency professionals, responders, healthcare workers. Is practice those preparations, come up with alternatives, because your primary plans do fail sometimes, or they're just not available. Again, so thank you for this year's speaker series. We will announce next year's speaker series in January and February. This is the last one. It's been a great year. Appreciate everyone for attending, and have a good night, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving.